This is the New York City FC Pregame Live. Tonight, New York City look to bring home their first trophy of the year as they host Atlas in the Campeones Cup. And now, here are your hosts, Glenn Crooks and Matty Lawrence.
Yeah. Wait, where's Matty? He didn't make it in yet.
What is that?
Matty's right here. Wow, that was odd. But we are here. We're at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. And what that means is back-to-back games at the Big Ball Orchard in the South Bronx with Art Russ Jr., a talk radio host years ago, used to call this place. And, we're looking forward to this one because it's the Hudson River Derby. That's New York City playing host to the New York Red Bulls. And it's the second of the season series. In the U.S. Open Cup, the Red Bulls had the best of New York City at Red Bull Arena 3-0 to eliminate them in the quarterfinals. But then, a few days later in the regular season, New York City, different tactics. They beat the Red Bulls 1-0, and now they're going for the series sweep, Matty. But before we get to that, we're going to go back to Wednesday. We were both here, exact same spot, and we got to see New York City play their best game in quite some time, I'd say.
Absolutely. The best game in, 2 or 3 months, I'd have thought. I said it on the night. Look, they won. They won the trophy. They won the Campeones Cup, obviously. But I just think more important than that was it was important for us to see that there was that real strong desire to stay together, to start strongly. Yeah. We hadn't seen those levels of intensity, and that's doing the players a disservice, but rightly so. We hadn't seen those levels of intensity in the last 10 games. That's why they've only won one of the last 10 in the league. It's factual. It's out there. And we don't know the reason for that. I'm sure Nick Cushing doesn't either. Otherwise, he'd have stemmed that a long time ago.
It really does mimic a season ago. We know that there's no Tate Castellanos here and still struggling to figure out how to score goals on a consistent basis. But there was a 10-game stretch last year, and I remember Gudmundur Tor Aronson, after he scored that tying goal against Atlanta, which lifted the weight off the shoulders of the entire franchise at that moment. But he even said, it's just so strange. We just couldn't figure out what was going on. And that's got to be difficult for everyone involved when you can't quite find the answer. And we wonder if the answer was sorted out Wednesday. Let's listen to the two goals and watch the two goals as you heard them on the New York City FC network. First, our boy out of the back, he's the Peruvian international. Let's see. Much greener than the last time we were here. And here's a save and a goal for New York City off the deflection. Nico Acevedo on the keeper. No whistle from the referee in New York City. Alexander Collins coming through in the early stages of the Campeones Cup. We talked about moments that could spur New York City down the final stretch of the season. Perhaps this is the start of it. Pereira with the free kick, Acevedo hassling the keeper, and Collins with a finish. And the celebratory photo in the locker room afterwards. A lot of champagne flowing and a lot of happy faces, Matty. I mean, it's just, do you think it was that kind of moment where they just was like, oh, Nick Cushing, the head coach, hesitates to use the word that it was a relief, but it had to be in some respects.
I think that's the perfect word for it. It certainly would have been a relief for Nick Cushing, first and foremost, that he could get his players playing in the manner with which he wanted. And the way he plays, it has to start with a level of intensity. It has to be the fact that they out-battle, they out-fight the opponent before they outplay them. And that is exactly what happens. And yes, it could be that moment, but that's just a one-off game. It's almost irrelevant. Well, it is irrelevant in terms of league play, but we hope that spurs NYCFC on towards playing like that in that manner in the league. We'll find out, I think, today.
I think we're not far away from finding out, right?
Absolutely, and I think it's great that it's another big game. It's not that after the Lord Mayor's show. It was a wonderful performance against Atlas, a big night, won a lot of money for the club, a load of fans here. I think it's good that there's going to be
it's not like it was the Chicago Fire was coming in, but it will be the largest home attendance this season. The pre-sale is already beyond the 24,000 800 that were here Wednesday night for the Campeones Cup. So there is going to be atmosphere here for this Hudson River Derby. And up and to the right, and we can see the Red Bull fans and supporters starting to gather. They always have their spot in the upper deck to our right, and it's they'll make some noise, no question about it, as the Red Bulls have you could say have been dominant in the rivalry. They have 10 wins against 7 defeats and 3 draws, and it's gone a little up and down, but it was in the early stages of the rivalry in particular where the Red Bulls have it. Before we leave the Campeones Cup, let's watch the guy score the goal who he had the biggest smile after the game I've ever seen. I'm sure part of it was it.
To Magno, top of the D, finds Maxi Morales. Here's the shot, and New York City takes a 2-0 lead just 3 minutes into the second half as Morales slots into the back post, and he runs to the corner flag to the left, mobbed by his teammates. Santi Rodriguez on his back, now Nico Acevedo. And a great moment for the 35-year-old Argentinian as he puts New York City up 2 goals.
It's a wonderful goal and a wonderful finish from Morales. Doesn't try to hit it too hard, hits it with the laces, just guides it past Vargas. That is a top quality goal, Glenn.
Magno with a delicate little ball to his right.
How about the play of Magno off the ball there? See where he received the ball, and then he got he did a little back heel to Santi Rodriguez, and he moved off the ball to get it back. So there was a lot of mobility in that goal, and maybe throughout the match. Off the ball, I thought they worked very hard.
Absolutely, on both sides of the ball, and as you say, providing opportunities for the person in possession to find a teammate. I think there was many options for the person in possession of the ball, which is what you need. You need 4 or 5 options. And Magno there, we saw what he's best at. He can't really play with his back to goal. Certainly not high up the pitch, certainly not when he's got a centre-half on his back. He wants to be playing on the half-turn. And I like that when he drops deeper. Yes, he's playing as a 9, but he almost plays as a 10. And that's his best position if he's going to play centrally. That's for certain. I think his best position is on the left. But we know with no Ever, we know with no Castellanos, he's got to play through the middle, it seems. But I want him to drop deep. He has to play on the half-turn. And when he's running at opponents, that's when he's at his best. He's one of the best players in MLS, if not in North and South America, of dribbling the ball and going at a defender one-on-one. That is for sure.
The way I saw that goal, and I mentioned it to Nick Cushing, and the Nick Cushing pregame show presented by Ford, upcoming beginning at 12:45. That's when our live commentary begins with the pregame show on the New York City FC Network, the NYCFC app, and the TuneIn app. But it's very much a false 9, receiving the ball where he did, and then the kind of movement that he made after that. And Nick Cushing, you'll hear him in the interview. He said he's still learning how to play the number 9.
Yeah.
And especially with his back to the goal, because he, as Nick Cushing puts it, he likes to have the ball at his feet and dribble. And you just said it.
Yeah, exactly. And look, it took Tati Castellanos 18 months to learn how to play as a number 9, and he was a few months older than Tyler Magno, if not a year or 2 older. So yeah. It will come. I'm not sure that will be his position moving forward, but right now needs must. And as you just said, as Nick will tell us as well in the interview, he is at his most dangerous when he's facing the opposition's goal and when he's running at defences. It's clear for everybody to see. And if you're a defender, you want to keep him with his back to goal. You mark him tight and you want him to play high up the pitch, because then he's a lot easier to mark when he's got his back to goal. The minute he turns, you're in big trouble if you're a defender.
Remember, there was one moment in the match. I know that the New York City was attacking to our left, so it's the second half. It must have been 4 scissors on the poor defender, which sometimes you can over-scissor yourself. But as I recall, he eventually beat the defender off the dribble.
Looked so natural. I've seen people do 4 or 5, 6 scissors and it almost feels forced, but it was so quick. It was so natural. Of course, you don't need to do 4 scissors. If you're a good defender, you just watch the ball. The ball doesn't move. But look, it's a joy for fans to watch. It's great for us to watch. It's nice sort of playground trickery. The fact that you said is, then don't give the ball away. It's all well and good doing nutmegs or doing 4 step-overs, but then you've got to keep the ball, possess the ball for your team. And he's definitely getting better at that as well, Magno.
Another storyline from Wednesday night, certainly winning the cup, lifting the cup, and lifting the spirits of this club. Kevin O'Toole, the rookie, who out of Princeton, a second-round draft choice, who joined the team in preseason, and he earned his spot with the first team. A lot of draft picks around MLS don't make it out of preseason, don't make it through the entirety of preseason.
Absolutely.
And so O'Toole made it. He was the two-time Offensive Player of the Year at Princeton University, and Montclair, New Jersey native, and he started at wingback on the left as Nick Cushing for the fourth consecutive game played with a three-back system. We're awaiting the starting 11 to be published today to see just where we're at. But I spoke to Kevin O'Toole. He'll be on our halftime of the broadcast today on the New York City FC Network, about a 7-minute interview with him. And you'll learn a little bit more about him. But this came from yesterday after training, and he did not expect to start this game on Wednesday night against Atlas FC.
When you heard you were going to be in the 11, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a surprise to me. Usually it comes in the morning meeting the day before the game on match day -1, and we went through the meeting, and then Nick posted the starting lineup, and I was in it, and I was very surprised. Heart rate went up a few notches in a very good way, but yeah, I was just excited. I mean, I feel like I've been working towards this the whole year, and so when I saw my name on that board, I knew it was a really good opportunity and a really important game for me to get significant minutes and just contribute in any way I could.
And the question now is, Matty, did he earn another start against the New York Red Bulls, which would be extraordinary for him because as a youth player, he played for the Red Bull Academy. He played for Red Bull 2. He won a USL championship alongside Aaron Long in 2016, the starting center back for the New York Red Bulls. And his best friend on the Red Bulls is Omir Fernandez, who scored the game-winning goal against New York City the last time that they played here at Yankee Stadium. So again, hopefully before we go off on NYCFC Pregame Live, we're able to share the starting 11 for you. But it is a nice story, and he played well.
Yeah, it's a great story. I think I said it just before half-time. I said something like, I know Kevin O'Toole's playing well because we've hardly mentioned him. It means he didn't put a foot. It means he didn't put a foot wrong, and he kept everything simple. And then his game progressed in the second half. That wasn't being demeaning to him. He did everything right, kept it simple, worked his way into the game, up to the pace of the game. It's his debut. And then, of course, in the second half, he went on, and I thought he showed flourishes of great attacking intent. And look, I don't know the starting lineup, but I would say that any manager I've had says you earn the right to wear the shirt. And I believe every player in the team has earned the right to wear that shirt. So it would be very, very hard for Nick Cushing to take anybody out of that starting lineup. I know, of course, there's Sean Johnson. Whether he comes back in or not, that remains to be seen. But I think it would be very hard on any player, even Barraza himself, to come out of the team because they all played exceptionally well. But I know that's why you employ a head coach, to make these hard decisions, Glenn.
Out on the injured list, Alfredo Morales still with some discomfort. And he was training on the side yesterday, looked pretty good. I talked to him after the training session, and he said it's still going to be a little time, but they're hoping that he'll be able to start training full with the team during the international break, which is coming up after this afternoon's game. New York City is off until October the 2nd, a home game against Orlando. That one will be at Red Bull Arena. And Eber is also out. He injured the hamstring, and Tyler Magno had to come in earlier in the game than expected on Wednesday, but then got the assist on the Maxi Morales goal, which put that game away. So it's a derby. There's always that derby stuff going on. And certainly last week, Gerhard Struber, who's the head coach for the New York Red Bulls, he used the word guarantee when he was referring to how his team would do against New York City FC in this Hudson River Derby this afternoon. So after the Campeones Cup triumph, New York City interim head coach Nick Cushing was asked to respond to that.
I wish soccer was so simple, huh? But he's obviously confident. Listen, I expect it. And I expect it because arguably the greatest ever performance of an NYCFC team against a Red Bull team in the last defeat. I think, listen, when you lose derbies, it's hard. I think for him, when he lost the way that he lost, I think that's difficult. So they will have incredible motivation to make sure that we don't play the football that we played in their home and win the way that we won. One thing I will say is it was the perfect like warm-up game tonight for Red Bull, because the direct balls and they're just like smashing it from back to front and getting after it. It was a perfect warm-up game.
And the little smirk, the wry smile at the end of that. So that little boop, boop. Interesting.
Get your little jabs in early.
Yeah,
That's
why
for
not?
certain.
Why not?
He said it a little bit tongue in cheek, but he also meant it a little bit too.
Well, he had to do that's why it's good to see. Sometimes if you just hear.
Exactly. He had a little smirk, and I'm sure that he and Gerhard Struber, they'll be at it on the sideline, but before the game they'll shake each other's hands, and hopefully after the game they'll shake each other's hands, as you should do. But yes, this is an intense rivalry, which will be stoked even further by managers' comments, and stoked even more by the vociferous crowd we're going to get here, and the fact that we're going to get home and away fans, as we did against Atlas, and it obviously makes for a much better atmosphere if there's two sets of fans.
That's going to happen today, although it will be maybe a more dominant New York City FC supporters group here today. That's the way it'll be at Yankee Stadium. I know you talked about walking in and seeing all the Atlas supporters on Wednesday night in their pregame garb and all the other things that you might attend to before you enter the stadium. And then you would see things from people who are in the crowd. So the best we could probably gather is it was 50-50 the other night, and both groups were loud. I mean, that was, you could tell a goal or a call against or whatever. You could hear the roar. Our effects are fantastic here at Yankee Stadium. That is the natural effects during our radio broadcast. You can hear the sound of the ball, the shrill of the referee's whistle, and the supporters. You can really get a good feel for the atmosphere here at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, it was great. 50-50. Certainly it was edging towards a positive numbers for Atlas, I would have thought. I think it might have been nearer to 60% for Atlas. But look, it was great to see all the Mexican fans here at Yankee Stadium, and pretty much to a man, woman and child, they were wearing the red and black of Atlas as well. They all seemed to have the jerseys on, and it just made for a great pattern throughout the ground as well. A lot of red and black jerseys and a lot of obviously sky blue jerseys of NYCFC. So yes, it made for a wonderful night, made even better by the players showing up and performing in the manner with which we know they can. We just hadn't seen it for 10 games.
And how about showing up? Now, this is a true super fan, and I give credit to Matty Lawrence. He sent me he texted me a tweet that he came across from, as it turned out, a guy named Andrew Barney, who is at UK NYCFC. And I had seen that handle on Twitter quite often, and he follows us. And he was at the Portland game and things like that. So Matty said, I don't know, maybe it'd be great to have him on the NYCFC pregame live, which we did on Wednesday. And so here's Barney, and he's sitting in the Steinbrenner suite, thanks to Brad Sims, the president of New York City FC, taking good care of him because he flew over from the UK. The photo, or the tweet that Matty shared with me, there was a pint on the bar and a passport, and you can see down below it was Heathrow Airport. So very cool stuff. So here's Andrew Barnard explaining how he became a New York City FC fan.
My brother-in-law was a Man City fan. He took me to my first ever Premier League game, 16, 17 years ago. So there was always a little bit of the City Group love in my DNA, I guess you could say. But around 10 years ago or so, I was a night owl. I was always up late watching whatever football was on telly in the UK. And that was around the time New York were created as part of the City Group with Yankees, of course. And when they signed people like Frank Lampard, a bit of an MLS UK link, I was like, you know what? I haven't got a team yet in MLS. This is the team for me. Playing at home in such a famous ground as Yankee Stadium. I don't think many British people could name another MLB stadium other than Yankee Stadium. So it was all little things like that just came together. I was like, I like this. I like the sound of this.
So there's how Barney became a New York City supporter. He's been over multiple times.
Yep.
including the Cup in Portland last December. And that's wonderful. He has to stay up pretty late over there to catch NYC games.
Yeah, as you know, before I came to the States in 2016, I used to commentate on those games for Sky Sports back home. And obviously, if it was a West Coast game, we would be kicking off at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Then we'd have the rain delays, so we'd be walking out of the studios as the sun was coming up. Yeah, that was a tough gig, but a lot of fun, and that's where I became really accustomed with MLS before coming back over here to the States.
Well, we're at Yankee Stadium. The lineups still have not been published. Sometimes I think this is gamesmanship. So we're going to depart in a moment without the lineups, but you keep in tune to Twitter at NYCFC. They will be the first to expose the New York City lineup, and then the New York Red Bull Twitter site will be the first that you'll see the Red Bull lineup. And the last game at Yankee Stadium, Red Bull New York defeated New York City on September the 25th a year ago, 1-0. Omir Fernandez, who we learned is like best friends with Kevin O'Toole, where we're waiting to see if O'Toole gets the start again at left back or wing back on the left side. And New York City overall against the Red Bulls in this series, 5-3-1 at Yankee Stadium. 15 goals for, 17 goals against. And you go like, well, how do they have a winning record? Well, you have to, there was that old 7-0 game in December. You weren't around for that. That was 2016. That was a painful one if you're on the New York City FC side. The Red Bulls have clinched a playoff berth. There's a number of scenarios, but if New York City wins this game today, there's a very good chance by the end of the night they will have also clinched. But the win also important because they're in fourth place. Yeah. Orlando City 4 points behind in fifth. You've got this game, the international break, and then a home game against Orlando, which might turn out to be the biggest match of the year if they're playing for home field advantage.
And look, almost more importantly for me is you gain ground on New York Red Bulls. It's not quite the archetypal 6-pointer. They're 4 points behind the Red Bulls. If they win here today, they obviously only move a point behind with 2 games apiece left to play. And as we know, NYCFC want to finish as high up the league, as high up the conference as possible. So it's not quite a must-win, but they'll be desperate. It's a derby game, and they need to prove that they can follow on from that wonderful performance on Wednesday in league play.
All right, so we've got the Red Bulls lineup here, and nothing too shocking in here. Although we do see Caden Clark in the 7-11, and he is... it's been a bit up and down for him. This is only his third start in what will be his 16th appearance. And Luquinhas, that's what we expected. Yeah. He hasn't had a goal in 12 games, so he's kind of in that Tylus Magno territory. Magno without a goal in 14 games. And but outside of Clark in there, Manuel, that's going to be our first look at him. He's a Brazilian that arrived recently from Grêmio in the second division of Brazil.
Yeah. Look, Grêmio are an esteemed team, but so they've had a bad time of it lately. The second division in Brazil is not great. I don't know a great deal about this guy, but look, I always like watching Lewis Morgan, that's for certain. I loved watching him when he was at Inter Miami. I was surprised they let him go. I know New York Red Bulls paid a lot of money for him, but he's certainly a danger man to focus on from Red Bulls' point of view.
14 goals for Morgan, 6 of them from the penalty spot, which some people, from the penalty spot, 6 for 6 though.
That's
when
bad.
you're automatic from the spot, that's really important, isn't it?
Absolutely. You know? And a goal's a goal. It doesn't matter whether you hit it in from 40 yards, from an unopposed strike from 12 yards, obviously a penalty, doesn't matter. A goal's a goal, and 14 goals is a great return for a person who isn't a forward per se. I know he's a wide man. I know he's an attacker or certainly a winger. I think we can consider it. But that's a really good return for the man.
And as we continue to hang in there, we're going to see if we can get the New York City 11. Let's ask the center back, the man, professional central defender, Aaron Long. So he was picked by Greg Berhalter to be in the squad for these friendlies, and you'd have to assume at this point that he's definitely going to be part of the U.S. Men's National Team World Cup side in Qatar in November. But you've seen Aaron over the years now. What's your assessment of him as a center back?
I really like him. I'd love to have seen him get a move. I know there's a lot of talk about him moving, whether it had been West Ham or other teams in England or in Europe. I'd have liked to have assessed him playing at a higher level. It is a higher level if you move to the Premier League. But within MLS, he is one of the top centre halves. I think Long, Zimmerman, Miles Robinson, who I know is injured, Alexander Callens, sorry. There's not many other centre halves that I can think of that are as good as those four that I've just reeled off there.
So you see him maybe getting the starting nod in Qatar along the way.
Without
or
Miles Robinson, maybe, yes, maybe. It depends what happens between now and then. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if it was Aaron Long and Zimmerman. That's for certain. And that will be good for MLS as well, to have the starting centre halves both playing in MLS.
What's your stance on a left-sided central defender being a natural left versus not? And again, if maybe you have, it's very difficult to say who's better than the other. I mean, if one player is monumentally more effective, just is a better player. But what's your feeling on left versus right?
For balance, you definitely want your left-sided centre half to be left-footed. That's a fact. When I played right-sided centre half, I played with a right-footed player or who was predominantly right-footed at left centre half, but he worked tirelessly on his left foot, so he was two-footed. I think it's very hard for a left-sided centre half to be predominantly right-footed because you're always trying to cut back onto your right foot into danger, into the middle of the park, whereas you really want to be taking the ball out to the left-hand side, away from goal and clipping it up the line or playing it into a central midfielder with your natural left foot.
All right. We've got the New York City starting 11 just published, so one thing you see, Kevin O'Toole will be starting against all his former mates. He was in the Red Bull Academy, played for Red Bull 2. Let's review it again as it's scrolled in the bottom third. Sean Johnson back in goal. He indeed was injured. He had what is almost like a turf burn in that hip area, and it was really bothering him. But they've treated it. Gray, Martin, Chenot, Collins, O'Toole. Morales and Acevedo will be the midfielders again. Pineda, Eber is wrong. That should be Tyler Magno and then Rodriguez. So it's not Eber, it is Tyler Magno. Eber is not available. So two changes. Sean Johnson in goal and Magno in at the start for Eber. Eber went down pretty early in that Campeones Cup match.
Yeah, I think the team almost picks itself. As I said earlier on, I did say that once you earn the shirt, you should stay in the side. But it can't be a surprise that Sean Johnson takes over from Barraza.
Right.
Yes, it's harsh on the young man because he had a very good game. But it's very, very hard to keep out the club captain, a US men's national team player, and one of the best goalkeepers in the league. So it can't be surprising. And look, however tough it is for Luis Barraza to take, he will understand or have to understand.
New York City, they're on the field warming up. The Red Bulls have yet to emerge from the changing area and through the tunnel, which is on the third base dugout side here at the Yankee Stadium. It is the Hudson River Derby. He's Matty Lawrence. I'm Glenn Crooks. Chris Sakonis, you see there behind us. He'll be hosting halftime and postgame on our live commentary beginning at 12:45, about 15 minutes from now. The pregame show with Nick Cushing, and that's presented by Ford. So you're going to want to tune into that, nycfc.com/radio, the NYCFC app, and the TuneIn app. So that's it for us. Let's have a good game, Matty.
Absolutely.
We never shake hands during the New York City pregame live. Come on, let's make it a tradition. All right, enjoy the game, everybody.